Good evening, everyone, and welcome to 30 minutes of Torah study for the holiday of Chanukah. We're doing things slightly different tonight. We have people on Zoom as well as people in person. It is about -3 degrees outside and flurrying a little bit. I didn't anticipate people would actually show up in person, so I did not set up my office in the perfect environment for the in-person class, but we do have some people who are in class. So from time to time, I may be turning to the side. That is the reason why. All right, so we're going to begin. Imagine this scenario. It is Friday, and Friday night is the first night of Hanukkah. You're rushing around like crazy these short Fridays. You burst into your house. It is 1 minute before candle lighting time. You turn to your menorah, and there is one candle. All you have is one candle. You look towards your Shabbos candles, you open up the drawer, you open up the cabinets, nothing, zero, empty. All that you have in your house is one candle and one candle only. You need to light the menorah. You need to light Shabbos candles. What do? Do you light the Shabbos candles and not light the menorah? Do you light the menorah and not light Shabbos candles? So let's go to text number 1 and see what the Code of Jewish Law has to say. If you have a choice between lighting up your home in honor of Shabbos and lighting Hanukkah candles, light up the home because this enhances peace. Peace is the highest priority, as evidenced by the fact that God's own name is erased to create peace between a husband and a wife. Peace is of primary importance, for the entire Torah was given to introduce peace to the world. As the verse states, its ways are pleasant and all its paths are peaceful. So we have a very clear ruling from the Code of Jewish Law. When there's a conflict between Shabbos and Hanukkah, the lights of Shabbos are going to be superior. Why? Because they bring peace into the world. And from the perspective of the Torah, from the perspective of Judaism, peace is primary. Now, how exactly do the Shabbos candles bring peace? Now, we know that when you light Shabbos candles, it's a very spiritual time. It's a very holy time. As the woman of the house stands before the candles, covers her eyes, prays on behalf of her family, children, grandchildren, Jews all over the world. In that sense, you can describe the candles as being peaceful. However, there's actually a more practical reason for peace. Rashi comments on the Talmud, we light candles on Shabbos because the family would be distressed to sit in the dark. The Code of Jewish Law explains, it is a rabbinic enactment to light candles in every room that we enter on Shabbos to ensure peace in the home so that people will not stumble on wood or stone. The primary mitzvah is to light candles near the dinner table. Now, this all makes a lot of sense on a very practical level. Before the invention of electricity, when night came, when the sun went down, it was simply dark. There was no switch to just flip, and all of a sudden you had light, and you lived in light. You needed fire. You needed wood, you needed candles, or you simply were going to sit in the dark. Now, this creates a bit of a problem on Shabbos, because on Shabbos you are not allowed to light a fire. The only way that you are going to have light on Shabbos is if you lit a fire before Shabbos. So the rabbis instituted something. They said very simple. Before Shabbos, make sure that there is light in your home so that you can see each other, so you can talk to each other, so you don't trip and fall, so you don't walk into the walls. There has to be peace in the home. So the primary purpose of lighting Shabbos candles is to light up the house and bring about a feeling of peace. Therefore, you have a choice, Hanukkah candles or Shabbos candles, you light the Shabbos candles. But this brings up a kind of an obvious question. Don't the Hanukkah candles also provide light? After all, it literally is a candle. A candle provides light. So why do you have to do the Shabbos candle? Why not light the Hanukkah candle? After all, Hanukkah comes only once a year. Shabbos comes every week. Let's light the Hanukkah candles. The Hanukkah candle sheds a beautiful light the same way that the Shabbos candle would. However, that is not possible. Let's go to the Code of Jewish Law. one must fill the candle with enough oil to burn for 30 minutes after nightfall. So that's the minimum amount. During these 30 minutes, when the Chanukah lights are obligatory, it is forbidden to benefit from their lights. We see very clearly that the point of Chanukah candles is not for its light in a practical, usable sense. The light of the menorah is holy, it is sacred, it cannot be utilized for any mundane purpose, just as tefillin, a mezuzah, a sefer Torah could not be used for any mundane purpose either. The menorah reminds us of the battle, the victory, the story of Chanukah, the fight for Torah, for truth, for Judaism. That's what it represents. You are not permitted to benefit from the light of the candle, so that's out. If you want light, if you want there to be peace, the only option is for Shabbos candles. So when you have a conflict between Shabbos and Chanukah, Shabbos takes precedence, even though Chanukah is only a once-a-year mitzvah and you're going to be missing out on that light. Nevertheless, the peace of Shabbos takes priority. Now, there's a powerful message for us in this idea that sometimes you have to sacrifice something, you have to give up something in order to achieve peace. You're giving up the opportunity for Chanukah in order to achieve peace in the home. Now, this makes a lot of sense because in our own lives, in our own marriages, in our own relationships, we have to give up something to make peace. Maybe you want to go to the restaurant. Maybe you want to try that new fabulous kosher steakhouse, but your spouse is kind of in the mood to stay home. Tired, had a long day, just wants to sit on the couch. Sometimes you have to give up something. You got to sacrifice something in order for there to be peace in the house. Maybe you like driving a sports car, but if you need a minivan, sometimes you got to give up that sports car in order to have the minivan, which will ensure peace in the home. Now, this argument makes sense when it comes to relationships. Give up the sports car in order for the minivan. It's practical. Peace in the home. It's going to make sense. Life is going to work much better. But how do we apply the same argument to a mitzvah? How do we say that? Should we lose out on a mitzvah for the sake of peace? No Chanukah candles, just so your house will be light? Should we not set our needs aside and opt for the mitzvah? Is it the end of the world, right, if you are going to be for one Friday night without light in the house? Could you manage a little bit? Is it possible? Maybe you go to sleep early, maybe you catch up on some rest. Why are we prioritizing the need for the light and the need for peace? Why are we sacrificing a mitzvah? It makes sense to sacrifice for peace in other areas of life, but why do we sacrifice for peace in this case when we lose out on such an important mitzvah, such a beautiful mitzvah, meaningful mitzvah like Chanukah, which only comes around once a year? Why should we lose out just to a little bit of darkness? So let's try to understand the nature of choice, especially when it comes to a mitzvah. So imagine this scenario. I'm going to give you $1 million, $1 million. And the choice is this. Do you want the $1 million in your right hand, or should I place it in your left hand? Whichever hand you choose, no one's missing out. No one's losing. Either way, it's fantastic. Now, it's true, if it goes in your left hand, it's not in your right. If it goes in your right, it's not in your left. But either way, win-win situation. Either way, it all works out. You'll be thrilled and you'll accept it. Let's apply the same thing to Torah and mitzvahs. There is a mitzvah that a person is supposed to study Torah 24/7. If you're not doing anything of greater importance, 24/7, you got to be studying Torah. But what happens if you're studying Torah and it comes time, the sun is setting, it's time to daven mincha? You have to stop studying Torah and you have to daven mincha. Does that mean you're missing out on the mitzvah of Torah study? You're losing on the mitzvah of Torah study because you have to daven mincha? Absolutely not. When a person interrupts their study of Torah to daven mincha, they absolutely get the credit for Torah study as if they were still studying Torah. Let's look at what the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe writes. He says, all mitzvahs are interconnected in complete oneness. Our sages taught that one must never weigh one of the Torah's mitzvahs against another. The lightest mitzvah and the harshest mitzvah were given by the same shepherd, namely the one God who spoke them. Therefore, each mitzvah is included within all mitzvahs. This is why one who is engaged in a mitzvah is exempt from other mitzvahs. The meaning here is that it is considered as if we fulfilled both mitzvahs, the mitzvahs that we performed and the mitzvah from which we were exempt. This is because this mitzvah that we performed includes the one from which we were exempt. So from this perspective, Chanukah and Shabbos are not in a competition with each other, which one will be observed and which one will be missed out, which one will be lost. No, they are all mitzvahs commanded by the same God. They are all interconnected with each other. They are all included with each other. When the mitzvah of lighting the Shabbos candles is observed, it is considered as if the mitzvah of lighting the Chanukah candles were observed as well. So no missing out. Now, this is a very nice answer. However, this is an answer that applies to all mitzvahs throughout the entire Torah equally, no matter the circumstance. However, in our case, this is not the argument that the Talmud or the Jewish law makes. The argument that they make is, why do you choose Shabbos over Chanukah? Not because all the mitzvahs are equal, but because of peace. What does the argument about peace bring to the table? Why specifically when it comes to the Shabbos and the Chanukah candles do our sages bring up the element and the concept of peace? So let me give you another scenario. There is a country that is in conflict. War is brewing. There are two ministers in the government. There is the Secretary of War. He's going to run the war, mobilize the military, direct it, and guide it. He is gearing up and ready to go to make the order to do battle with the other country. However, there's also a Secretary of State. The Secretary of State, that person's job is diplomacy, negotiation. Let's sit down at the table. Both have a very different job, but they share exactly the same goal. The goal is to make peace. The Secretary of War may feel that war is the way to go. The Secretary of State may feel that diplomacy is the way to go. However, being that their goal is peace, if the reality on the ground is diplomacy will not work, only war is going to work, then the Secretary of State will support war fully. Why? Because the goal is peace. Similarly, in a scenario where diplomacy is within reach, the Secretary of War will support diplomacy. Why? Because the goal is peace. It's a win-win situation. In other words, both will support whatever is going to be a win-win situation. Let's apply this type of thinking to this scenario. The Rebbe says the purpose of the entire Torah, which includes each mitzvah, is to bring peace to the world. It follows that no mitzvah can be said to have been superseded by a mitzvah that brings peace. This is because the mitzvah that brings peace fulfills the very purpose of the other mitzvah too. Thus, the other mitzvah has been fulfilled, not overruled. In the era of the Second Temple, the Greek, getting ahead of ourselves there a little bit. So when it comes to any two mitzvahs, one does not win and one does not lose. Each mitzvah is furthering the goal and the purpose for which the Torah was created, which ultimately is peace. Which mitzvah do we see the concept of peace being expressed in the most visible, obvious, clear way? Shabbos candles. The entirety of Torah is to bring peace. But it's specifically the mitzvah of Shabbos candles that demonstrates the idea of the message of peace so clearly. Therefore, it's important in this scenario. But with that in mind, it's not that Shabbos is overriding Chanukah. Chanukah is fully behind it and supports it as well. Because Shabbos and Chanukah have the same goal. What's the goal? To bring peace into the world. So therefore, what does Chanukah do? Chanukah bows to the Shabbos candles and says the Shabbos candles should be lit because through the Shabbos candles, the goal of peace is realized in the most beautiful way. Because this is, in fact, what Chanukah is all about. What is Chanukah about? Chanukah is about supporting and furthering what the Torah is all about. In the era of the Second Temple, the Greek kingdom issued decrees against the Jewish people, attempting to nullify their faith and forbidding them to observe the Torah and its commandments. They extended their hand against their property and their daughters. They entered the sanctuary and wrought havoc in it and made its sacrament impure. The Jews suffered greatly under them, for they oppressed them greatly until the God of our ancestors had mercy upon them, delivered them from their hand and saved them. The sons of the Hashmonaim, the high priest, overcame them, slew them, and saved the Jews from their hand. They appointed a king from the priests, and sovereignty returned to Israel for more than 200 years. Accordingly, the sages of the generation ordained that these 8 days, which begin from the 25th of Kislev, should be commemorated as days of happiness and praise of God. Candles should be lit in the evening at the entrance to the house on each of these 8 nights to publicize and reveal the miracle. What was Chanukah all about? It was the freedom of the Jewish people to study Torah. That is what the story of Chanukah is all about. The Jews went to war against the Syrian Greeks because the Syrian Greeks attempted to remove the Torah and the mitzvahs from the Jewish people. So the entire story of Chanukah is about the honor, the integrity, and the purpose of the Torah. The Torah is all about peace. Why did the Torah come to the world? To bring peace into the world. So therefore, right, when we choose Shabbos, we're choosing peace. So lighting Shabbos candles to bring peace to the house is directly in line with the entire purpose of Chanukah. So when we light the Shabbos candles, not the Chanukah candles, it's a win for Chanukah, because Chanukah is all about peace. I want to digress for a second, a cute little story about peace. This is a story about the Kuznetzer Maggid. He passed away in the year 1815. The story goes that a couple came to the Kuznetzer Maggid on the brink of divorce. Husband and wife fighting with each other like cats and dogs, terrible. And he said, what is this all about? The husband says, my wife disrespects me publicly, humiliates me. I can't take it anymore. How? What does she do? He says to her, he says to the Maggid, my favorite food in the whole world is kugel. I love kugel. I dream of kugel. We're poor. I work hard. I work like crazy. We don't have a lot of money for luxuries. But all week, I wait for this kugel. And when I grew up as a kid, right after making Kiddush, right by the challah, the first course was kugel. My wife refuses. I sit down and make Kiddush with challah, say, oh, could you bring out the kugel? No, we have to have fish first. We have to have salad. Okay, after the fish and salad, could we please have some kugel? I'm dying for this kugel. No, we have to have soup, matzah balls. He has soup and matzah balls. He asked his wife, please, could we have kugel? I'm waiting all week for kugel. No kugel. We have chicken. We have vegetables. We have other dishes. And then after the third course, then she brings out the kugel. I'm stuffed. I can't eat another bite. I had all these different courses. And the kugel is staring there and she's laughing at me. This is a crime. This is a disgrace. I can't stand it anymore with this woman. What I can do? The Kuznetzer Maggid says, I have a solution. I have a solution. 2 kugels. Make 2 kugels. Right when the meal begins, you wash up challah, kugel number 1. And then at the end of the meal, when your wife likes to serve the kugel, she'll have a second kugel. Compromise was accepted. Peace was had. A beautiful marriage flourished, right? The secret, 2 kugels, right? When in doubt, always add an extra kugel, right? You're with me? All right, let's go back to the class and the words of the Rebbe. For all these reasons, when it comes to the question of whether to light Shabbos or Chanukah candles, the Chanukah laws themselves instruct us to light Shabbos candles. Lighting up the home brings peace into the home. This means that in this instance, the Shabbos candles accomplish the purpose and the concept of peace, the focus of Chanukah, more than the Chanukah candles. The natural conclusion is therefore to light the Chanukah candles. The Shabbos candles. The Chanukah candles promote peace. The Shabbos candles promote peace even more in a more practical level. So therefore, we will light the Shabbos candles in this circumstance. In other words, we are not passing over the Chanukah candles. The Chanukah candles are not losing out. Peace doesn't trump a mitzvah. We can't cancel and eradicate a mitzvah for the sake of peace. Peace is the mitzvah. That's what the Torah mitzvah is all about, especially the mitzvah of Chanukah. Therefore, peace doesn't override the mitzvah. It, in fact, is the mitzvah. But how exactly does this work? We're making an argument that you're fulfilling the mitzvah of Chanukah by not doing it. Right? How do you fulfill a mitzvah by not doing something? The answer is we actually have a precedent for this. Without getting into the details of the mitzvah, there is a mitzvah that says in order to make peace between a husband and wife, you write the name of God onto a parchment, you dissolve it in water, and erase it, and thereby make peace between a husband and wife. It's the mitzvah of Sota. We don't have the time to detail it in the 30 minutes of Torah. Look what the Rebbe writes. We present as proof the fact that God's name is blotted out to restore peace between a husband and wife. Peace is not just important enough to justify blotting out God's name. It is so important that we write God's name in the first place only to blot it out and thus restore peace between husband and wife. This means that the mitzvah of writing God's name with all its inherent sanctity and intensity is only realized and manifested when it's blotted out to restore peace. Now, this is a fascinating halacha, because normally you write God's name on a piece of parchment. That is holy. That is sacred. We have to treat it very carefully, very particularly. You are not allowed to erase it. It is a biblical prohibition to erase the name of God. Because of that, any document that we have with the name of God on it has to be buried in the ground. In my office, I have like 5 boxes of Shemus right in the corner of my room. Right before Pesach, I usually go with about 10 to 12 boxes of all kinds of books and papers that have God's name, that have to be treated with respect, that cannot be thrown away or put in recycling, and that have to be buried in a cemetery. Because it's sacred, it's holy, it's the name of God. Yet, there's a mitzvah in the Torah that says, you write the name of God on parchment for the purpose and the sake of actually erasing it, eliminating it. Why? To create peace. Yes, sometimes by not doing something, by skipping over, by missing out, whether it's erasing the name of God or not lighting the Shabbos candles, that can be the most positive step towards peace and an expression of peace. So when we don't light the Chanukah candles, that in fact does have the ability to be an expression of peace. So far in this class, we have stressed peace. God is all about peace. The Torah is all about peace. Because of peace, we don't light the Chanukah candles. But ask you this very practical question. Why are we placing such a high value on peace? Sometimes, maybe there are values that are more important than peace. For example, sometimes you go to war, right? You could make peace, give up everything, right? Nazi Germany, we give you the United States, we give you Europe, we don't want to go to war, we want peace. There are values that are more important than peace. In a marriage, should you always give in to your spouse every single time for the sake of peace? That's not healthy either. That's not going to work either. There are times you have to say, no, this is important, this is a value, and we have to keep it. You're not always supposed to give in for the sake of peace. And I think we can all relate to it. There's the famous story where someone asked someone, right, Avi, if I asked you, right, if I could grant you one wish, you could have world peace, 1 second, world peace, or all of Elon Musk's money in the world, which color Ferrari would you buy? Right? That's the way the joke is phrased.
Very funny.
We all recognize that there are things that sometimes are more important than peace. So what does this mean that we're making such a priority on peace? To understand why peace is so important, we have to understand what the problem is with strife, with the opposite of peace. For this, we have to go back to the beginning of time. Before God created the world, God was alone. God is one. God represents the absolute unity. In an ideal sense, God would create the world, and the world is just an expression of God. Therefore, we will all feel united. There will be such a beautiful sense of unity, like one loving, connected family, an expression of the one God that we're created for. However, that's not the reality. Why? Because when God created the world, he concealed himself, he hid himself. That allowed everyone to feel that we are independent identities, and that is the reason why there is disunity, friction, fighting, because we don't feel that we are one and all part of the same family. The Alter Rebbe writes this clear in Tanya. This brute physical world is the lowest. There is none lower in terms of concealment of the divine light and in terms of its doubled and redoubled spiritual darkness. So much so that it is filled with unholy and unclean forces that are absolutely opposed to God, saying, I am, and there is nothing besides me. How should the world work? I am one with God. I am one with all of humanity. How is the reality? Right? I exist, and everyone should bow down to me. Right? That's pretty much how we function in the world today. Why is there disunity and separation and individualism in the world today? It is a symptom of divine concealment. It's a result of God hiding himself that allows us to feel independent. What is the solution? The solution is the revelation of God. How do we reveal God in the world? Torah. Through Torah and mitzvahs, we recognize and we express Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. God is one. We are an expression of God. We are a manifestation of God. We all have a soul, a spark of God. We're all one family. Therefore, there should be unlimited love amongst humanity. The true and complete meaning of peace is not just that conflict ceases and peace emerges. Rather, it is the creation of an environment in which the very notion of opposition is simply impossible. This means that it becomes clear to us that another's existence doesn't oppose and is not even apart from my existence. When we recognize that each of our existence are not in competition with each other, we're not in conflict with each other, we're not in contradiction with each other, rather we are all one with each other, we are literally part of the same family in the most literal sense, that is when peace is possible. And this is what Chanukah is all about. And this is what the Torah is all about. This is the deeper meaning of the saying, the Torah was given to bring peace to the world, to reveal that the world and all therein is really the Torah, an inherent part of God. It is the world's nature to conceal its divine light. Godliness is not openly visible on earth. On the contrary, the world appears to be separate from God, to the extent that it is possible to assume not only that the world is not an extension of God, but that it doesn't depend on God for its existence. It is possible to assume that this palace has no master, God forbid. That God gave us the Torah to bring peace to the world means that the Torah makes peace between the world and God, as it were. The Torah enables us to recognize and intuit that the universe is not in conflict with God, nor does it conceal godliness, that the universe depends constantly on God for its existence. Most importantly, that creation is merely an extension of the Creator. So this isn't the entire purpose of the Torah. This is why it was given to us, to bring peace to the world, to bring godliness into the world. And this is why when on Friday night Chanukah, when there's a conflict, we choose peace, because that's ultimately the goal and the purpose. This is what the Torah is all about, and this is what Chanukah is about. And I want to conclude with an explanation of why we light the menorah outside. Why do we light the menorah outside? Because we want to convey such a powerful message to the world. At night, when it's dark, which is a physical manifestation of concealment, the concealment of God, which causes us to feel different as individuals, which causes conflict, which causes strife, which is literally darkness. At the time of the most darkness, of the most concealment, when evil, bad, negativity, hatred can function, what do? We bring the light. We bring the light out into the public square with the message. The world is not about concealment. The world is about light. The world is an expression, it's a manifestation of God. And through the light of the candles, of the menorah, we bring peace and unity into the world. And this is why when there's the conflict between Shabbos and Chanukah, we light the Shabbos candles. Because the Shabbos candles represent peace and unity in the most practical way. So what's the bottom line? So Arlene says the bottom line is make sure you have enough candles. That's a good conclusion as well. But the bottom line is we need to bring peace into the world. We have to recognize that we're all connected, right? We're all related to each other on a spiritual level, on a physical level. Be good to each other. Torah is not a weapon to fight each other with. Torah, our Jewish identity, should be something that brings us together, unites us, and connects us. So do more mitzvahs, learn more Torah, bring more light into the world, and ultimately we will merit the coming of Mashiach when we'll light the menorah together with the Kohen Gadol in the Beis HaMikdash. On another practical level, this Sunday at 4 p.m., we have the Shul's Chanukah party. Let's glow crazy and light up the world. So at 4 p.m., we will light the menorah, the large menorah outside of Shul on the last day of Hanukkah. You will be able to be indoors in the lobby to witness this event. You do not have to freeze outside. We're going to have separate parties to follow. A disco party, glow party for the children, and an adult social for the adults. Incredible Chinese food will be served, and a fabulous time for all. So please make sure to sign up on the Shul's website, as well as to invite friends, families, neighbors, and so on, as this is going to be the best way to conclude the holiday of Hanukkah at the Shul's Hanukkah party.